Why, hello there, Ash and Gary fans alike. Shams Nelson here from Fantastic Anatomy. Very simple method for inking and coloring in Photoshop that'll give you a cartoony feel. And you know what? Let me give you an example of the kind of thing you're going to end up with, or the kind of style that I paint in. Here's a Charizard I did from my Poke Mutant Freaks series, and I'm all the way up to War Turtle. So as you can see, it's got lines and colors and some cell shading, as well as a little bit of gradient lighting and some highlights. And I'm going to show you how to do all that in a very simple way. We're only going to use the basic Photoshop brush and a few little techniques. And this is the first way that I learned to digital paint. So and it really helped me out, and I found it pretty easy. So what I have here, I got this number 8 that I put a number on each of them. I'm going to get rid of that by pressing the little I here. And I'm going to try to make this so that if you don't know anything about Photoshop, it'll still be relevant to you. But, I mean, so you should be able to follow along. But if you know a little bit, that'll be better. And I'm using a drawing tablet. I think this would be very difficult to do with a mouse. If you want to attempt it, go ahead. The only things that'll be different are going to be up here, but so you'll see what I mean. So the first thing I did is I created a sketch on a new layer with just the basic pen, kind of keeping it sketchy. And you could scan in your own sketch or take a photograph, put it here, or do a sketch on there. And it needs to be on its own layer because at the end we're going to get rid of it, and we can lower the opacity a little bit so that when we're drawing over it, it's not too prominent. So let's go ahead and lower the opacity there, and then we're going to create a new layer. And I'll call this layer line. Alright, so here we're going to start doing the line work. And when I do the line work, there are two settings up here that have to do with the pen. So the first one is opacity, which I leave at 100%. And then the next one over here is, I forget what this is called. Use pressure for size. So meaning if I press hard, it's going to make it bigger, but if I press lightly, see, I can get a little dot. If I press hard, it gets big. So those are the two important settings. So I put the pressure sensitivity on, and the opacity sensitivity off when I'm doing the inking. When I do the sketch, I leave them both on, so that I can get, as you can see here, there are darker parts, so I can get darker and like do really lightly and stuff like that. Okay. So with the line layer selected, make sure you select the line layer, because I've definitely accidentally drawn on the sketch layer and that kind of messes things up. I always choose a color that's not 100% black, because the color black flattens images, but if that's if you want to do that, you can, but this is a little tip. So even if it'll look black, but it won't be. So since War Turtle is a water type Pokemon, then I'm going to choose a dark blue color without too much saturation. Something like that should be fine. And it really doesn't matter what color you choose here, because I'll show you at the end we can change the color. So I'll just start inking here, and then I'll put it in fast forward in a little bit. But I ink really roughly, and I know it's hard to like ink in this program without getting jitters, unless you're like very practiced or you're using a Cintiq or something like that. So one of the ways you can solve that, there are two things. There is something called, what is it called? Lazy Nazumi. Lazy Nazumi, I think is what it's called. It's a plugin for Photoshop that helps you get smooth lines, and I don't think it's too expensive. But the other thing is, if you're using Manga Studio, which is very simple, similar to Photoshop, you can actually toggle on and off or you can adjust it. It does like automatic line smoothing, is what I'm trying to say. So you can have it do the automatic line smoothing for you. But I actually like a sketchy look. I don't know why. I've always liked that. I might be the only one. But I think it's kind of fun. And so I'm going to stick with this. Just kind of keep things going the way I've done it before. So let's see, is there anything else? Oh yeah, so one thing to do, way to get smooth lines if you want. So like, let's say right here. See, I kind of like it like looking rough like that. But let's say I make a line like this. Or let's say I'm trying to make a smooth line like that, okay? You can go over it, but then you can also zoom in, and then with the eraser tool. So I just flip over my my pen to go to the eraser tool, so you can erase out to try to get that line looking smoother. I mean, if you use vectors and stuff, you can use the pen tool, and that's how people get super smooth lines. But I find that very tedious, and so I'm showing you my method, and this is how I roll. So yeah, and just so you know, I have a regular round brush selected for the eraser, and I have both. Oh, usually I keep the pressure on for the eraser actually, so I'm going to turn that on and the opacity off, same as with the brush, so that if I press lightly I can get a little bit like that, and if I press harder I can erase bigger chunks. I know it's looking pixelated, but I don't think it's actually pixelated. Yeah, it's just the display. Maybe my graphics card is having a little issue. Alright, cool. So I think at this point I'm going to speed it up and do the rest of uh, the line work in fast motion. And I'm not actually speeding it up using a program, like I'm literally the Flash. So I'm going to just be like, and I just slowed it down for you guys because I just wanted you to see what's up. Alright, so flash mode activated. Alright, cool. I think I'm happy with that. Um, let me add a little something here. Alright, so what would be the next step? So now we don't need to have the sketch in there anymore. And sometimes you'll notice after you take off the sketch, you'll be like, oh, okay, actually I want to clean up a little bit in certain spots. So maybe it'd be better to turn on and off the sketch throughout the process. I don't really bother to though. I mean, it's up to you, those little differences. Um, but yeah, let's not be too picky right now. Alright, cool. Just one more little thing. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a thing with digital painting and painting in general, I think. You always find one more thing you want to work on, one more thing you could get a little better, blah, blah, blah. I try not to be too crazy about that because I'm just doing this for fun, and so I don't want it to make it into a crazy chore. Great. So we've got our inking done. What's our next step? The next step is to create a new layer, clicking down here. The other way you can go is layer, new, layer. Alright, and we're going to put this layer underneath the line. Okay? I'm going to name this layer color. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start coloring this in flat. So meaning just like whatever the colors is, not thinking about light and shadow, whatever the natural color of this creature would be. And one thing you can do is, I'll show you actually. So there's two ways to do this. One is just to color it in with your thing, just like that, taking your time, having fun with it, relaxing, max relaxing. Alright, or you can also take the paintbrush tool, paint bucket tool, paintbrush, no, paint bucket, and sample all layers here. I think you want anti-alias off, and this can be on and off, on or off. I'll show you what that does in a minute. But so basically I could take this and shade in the whole thing. The problem with that on Photoshop is that if you zoom in, look, there's this little layer, there's this little area right here that didn't get colored in. So you still got to go in with your brush and color that in. It's really annoying, I think. So sometimes I just do it regular because it feels more like coloring, and then I won't miss any of those little spots. I don't know why Photoshop does this. If any of you are Photoshop pros or just happen to know the solution for this annoying little thing, so I'm going onto the line layer, just saw that. When you zoom in, you'll see lots of little imperfections. So if you don't want to see imperfections, do not zoom in. But you'll probably see them at the end anyways and be annoyed, so it's up to you. So color, so I see all these, I'm going to get rid of that. Let's see what happens with anti-alias on. Maybe I don't think that will solve it. Oh, so you want contiguous? Okay, I'll show you what that means. Oh, all right. So I guess I lied. If you have anti-alias on, it's better. So please ignore what I said earlier. Let's see here. Does this work? Oh my goodness. Wow, okay, cool. So I learned something here myself. That's great. And I just saved myself a lot of time. So you can just paintbrush in. Sometimes, see, there's areas like that. I'll just go in. Well, I'll paint over that in a bit. So boom, I just got most of the colors in. So look, this is what contiguous does. Contiguous? So let's say I wanted to make them, alright, let's say I want to try a different color here. If I have this unchecked, oops, then it'll paint everything that's this color. It'll paint all this other color. If I have it checked, and I choose a different color, then it'll only paint that one section. So let's see, what color do I want to make this guy? The other thing you can do is, now that I have color, so let's say I do like to make this one color skin, alright? And I'll leave that on its own layer, because what I can do is I can come over here. What I did is I right clicked, went to blending options, and I can do color overlay. Click. Okay, I'm going to turn the opacity to 100%, I don't know. And then here I can just choose any color, and I can preview what it would look like. So I can come here and kind of like mess around. What color do I want it to be? What color? You know, and kind of get a good sense over there. Okay. And then, okay, that's it. But I like this. Let me stick with the color I like. And this is why I said also the line color doesn't matter. You can go blending options on the line, go color overlay, click that, turn up the opacity 100%, and then look, you can change the color of the line to whatever you want. It's on its own layer. Okay, I like the colors I'm working with so far, so I'm going to click cancel and leave them alone. I will keep the skin color on its own layer, and you'll see why in the end. Because I'm actually going to add some effects to the skin that I may or may not want to be on the rest of the guy. If I want it on the rest of the guy, I can. But if I put them all on one layer, then I can't really do that. You'll see what I mean. So let's do color everything else. Alright, cool. So now I'm just going to go ahead and pick whatever colors I like to do the rest of this, and I think I'll go into flash mode. Yeah, let's go into flash mode. Alright, cool. So now that we've got the base colors that we like, we can go ahead and add the shadow. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a new group. Okay, we're going to call this color. We're going to put all the color we wanted inside that group. And we can close it or leave it open either way. Then you're going to create another layer on top of it, call this shadow. And actually you're going to create another layer as well, called shadow color. Okay, the shadow layer, you're going to select it and go down here, say create clipping mask. See, there's a little arrow and it's indented now. This means that when I color on the shadow layer, see, I cannot go off into the white. If I color on the shadow color, which is not a clipping mask, I can go off on the white. On the shadow layer, we're going to change this to multiply. So here are all the layer styles. We're going to go up here, we're going to go multiply, and we'll change the opacity. This is where you can mess around if you want the shadows more intense or less intense. You'll adjust it. I usually go somewhere between 20 to 60 at the highest. So let's just throw it somewhere, some color in there. And then I'm going to choose a color for my shadow. A lot of times I like to use a purple color, more saturated if I'm doing something more cartoony and I want it more colorful and vibrant. or less saturated if it's more realistic. But you can mess around. You can make the shadows any color you want, and just like the other layers, you'll be able to change this at a later time. So just you could choose any color, and we're gonna go to shadow color layer and just put a swatch up here, because you'll see that when I go to the shadow layer that's on multiply and 34, when I paint it, it's going to take the colors. See, this color is not the same as this color right here, because it's interacting with the colors underneath in this folder. And so if I was to go and, let's say I sample, I'm holding down Option and using the eyedropper to sample this color. Let's say I see like, oh, I missed a spot here. Oops, I should do that on the color layer. You know, and I come in and I fix something. Oh, now I need my shadow color again. But if I go to the shadow color and I select here and I start painting, you'll see it doesn't match up right there. What I need to use is the original shadow color, which will just be sitting here. And at the end of the painting, we'll just go like that, and it'll disappear. So I'm just leaving it up there kind of like as a swatch. So let me erase what I did. Actually, here I just noticed a spot where I have that problem. Okay, right here. So I'm going to want, I see a little bit right there. So I just Option clicked. I'm going to go to the color skin layer, fill it in like that. Erase where it comes off here, erase where it comes off there. I see a little white there too. And then the white will actually become more obvious as you add shadow. So, okay, so now I'm back on the shadow layer. Let's zoom out a little bit. Choose this. And I'm going to erase what I did so far. Okay. And now I'm going to add the shadow. So I'm going to assume the shadow's coming from above generally. So everything underneath. So there's two shadows to think of. The cast shadow of something like this, and even under the eye, like this brow ridge creates a cast shadow. And then also the form shadow for things that aren't hitting the light. So the light's coming from up here. And so underneath the forms where they're curving, where the light's not hitting, like, so this is like basically a cylinder, so the whole bottom side of this is going to be a cast shadow. Alright? Remember, every little tooth has its own little cast shadow. The underside, under the mouth is sticking out. It's got its cast shadow. On the tooth, it's got its cast shadow. Then, even a little tooth has little form shadows. But you know what? I don't like to do that. I want to keep it. Technically it should. Maybe on this one I will because it's more square. But you know, this is where artistic freedom. Artistic freedom. See, I just saw right here. I got a little something going on, so I just selected this color with Option. Going back to color skin. Oops. Okay, I guess it's not. This one's on top, so I've got to erase it. There we go. Yep, there I see a little pot spot right there. Boom. And then I'm going to zoom out, select this, go back to the shadow layer. You got to always remember what layer you're on. And then come back and work. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do this whole guy. Flash mode! Alright, there's only a couple more steps. So we got the shadows, we've done the basic colors, we've done the shadows. Now we're going to add some highlights. So I'm just going to create another layer, call it highlights. Make sure it's on top of all your other layers, but underneath the line layer. Okay, and then for highlights, you're going to click here. And so what? When you add the purple, when you added the purple on the shadow multiply layer. By the way, let's see. Do we want to make it more shadows? No, that's too much. Less? No, I liked it where it was actually. Somewhere around there. Alright. See, that's how you can adjust the strength of the shadows. You can also change the color of the shadows by doing the same thing. Blending options, color overlay. Do opacity 100%. See, like this is what an orange shadow would look like. And the shadow color is the opposite color of the light source. Now I actually have a video about that called like the one thing you need to know about color or about color theory. So check that video. I go into depth about the colors of light and shadows and how that affects tone and stuff, and it's really like one of the most important things I've learned. It's a little more in depth than I want to go on this video. But if you had orange shadows, that would mean that the light source would be on the other side of the spectrum, so that means you'd have a blue light coming out. So that's kind of weird. Usually light's yellow from the sun, so that means on the other side of the color wheel is purple. And that's why it's a purple color. But like another common color would be like blue. You can make the color blue as like more of an orange light coming out. But if you want, you can get funky and make it like red or pink or whatever. Look, it's kind of crazy. I don't know, maybe you're going for that kind of look. Or see, if you make it black, I think black kind of looks boring. A little flattens the image a little bit. So I don't suggest it. But like you said, you could choose whatever color you want. It's your drawing. Rock on. So I'm going to go cancel because I like the purple light shows. I'm feeling it. So now let's go to the highlights layer. So the highlights, since everything's purple, that's a cooler color. It's making everything a little bit cooler than the color. Like this blue right here, the shadow blue is a little bit cooler rather than warmer than the other thing. This tutorial, see how this is yellow, and this is a, let's look where it's at. Oh, I just saw it. I missed a little spot. See, when you zoom in, you always see these little things. So I'm going to go to shadow layer. Fill that in. Okay. So when you, oh, what's this? Looks like a little messy there. Alright, cool. So everything here is a little cooler. So look, this is like this color is a nice yellow over here. So it's going to be, this is a little cooler. It's moving towards purple. Yellow is a little tricky because you can move towards purple in the green direction or the red direction. But since purple is kind of like a little warmer, it's moving in the red direction. So it came down here. Here we've got this really light blue. Okay, so it should move cooler. So it's probably going to move up. Notice where this is right here. So we select that color. And yes, it moves up. See how I can do it this way. There. It's moving up towards purple. There. And it's moving towards purple. Always moving towards purple. So we're going to move away from purple when we, see, I keep catching little spots since I didn't do that zoomed in. There's a little spot thing. So I'll clean this up at the very end. For the purposes of the video, I don't think I need to see there's another little spot. Cleanup is you know, it just takes a little time and detail, zooming in, looking at everything. Here's another little spot right there by the tooth. So, but we'll do that later. Okay. So to do highlights, so highlights are where the sun's shining. It's a little shiny. I like to make them shiny. So you can click, you option click to get the, or you can click here and click, but option clicks a lot faster. And you got the color highlighted here. And then you go up here and you're going to go, see purple's this direction. We're going to go a little bit away from purple and a little bit lighter towards white, something like that. And and go on the highlights layer. I leave everything normal, opacity normal. And then I'm just going to add little highlights because I want them to look a little shiny. So where do I want to add the highlights? Maybe something like that. Oops. Maybe I should add some bumps and stuff on them. Whatever. Maybe a highlight right here. Now see, that's probably where a shadow should be, and a highlight should be above that. Oh, on his brow ridges. That would be a good place for a highlight. Let's put a highlight here maybe. Highlight on his arm. Right there. Something like that. And I like to do highlights one and a little dot. I don't know. It seems to work. I like the way it looks. There's other ways you can do it, but that's just my little method. Let's do a teeth. Does this teeth need highlights? Go up here. And you know purple is going to move this direction. It's closer to purple, so let's make it a little bit on the green side. Like that. That's going to add another little dimension to your drawing. So here, let's give him a highlight on his eye. So let's go this way, make it a little lighter. Yeah, that's creepy. I want it to look a little creepy. I don't think we can put a highlight on this because it's already really light color, so I'll leave that alone. Let's put a highlight on this shell. Purple is going to be closer going down, so let's make it a little more yellow, a little lighter. Whatever. It's good enough. I'm digging it, I guess. Am I digging it? Sometimes right here on the edge, I like to put a little highlight. Like I said, right where the light turns to shadow. Can add a little contrast to make them look extra shiny. Here are a couple little more things you can do. One thing is I'm going to see these little swirls. I want them to be a little less pronounced than the rest of the outline. So I'm going to go here to the line layer and see where it says lock. It says lock transparency. That's what that does. So now I cannot paint outside of the line. Oh, I guess I clicked the orange paint bucket tool at some point, but anyways, can't see it. So that's weird, but whatever. Not a big deal. And now I'm going to choose a color here. I'm going to make it dark, but not as dark as this line. And I'm going to paint over here. And see how it's only painting that thing? So that's a little too light, actually. So let me try to start with this and lighten it up like that. Yeah, maybe something like that. Just a little lighter. So they're not as pronounced. Or does that make them jump out more because they're different? I don't know. But this is something you can do if you want to. Like, let's say you wanted to, a lot of people do this where, like, okay, I can make the lines, oops, that's a little too much. Say I want to make the lines lighter. You know, the color of the outline more match the color of the thing it's outlining. You can go in and do that and color the whole thing. Like, you could make the colors around the teeth the more yellow color, blah, blah, blah. You can do whatever you want. But, yeah, you know what? I don't like that. I'll keep it dark on there, but I'm going to darken this one back to normal. I like that better. So that's another little trick you can use. Let's see. Now, we're almost at the final stage. So there's two more things I like to do. One is I like to add an ellipse for the shadow. So I went to the ellipse tool down here. And I'm going to select fill, and I'm going to choose a bluish color. Okay. And make a new layer. Call this cast shadow. And you could just paint it in if you want. You know, like that, whatever. And that'll give him the shadow he's standing on. But I like to just take this, make a little circle. Like that. That's how I do it. Save some time, looks clean. And then I lower the opacity because it's not quite that bright. And you know what? I don't like, and if you want to change it, you just double click here and you can adjust the color. So I like a bluish color. I'm actually going to go back to my Squirtle and make sure that it matches the cast shadow is the exact same color as the Squirtle's cast shadow. See, I made a warm pinkish reddish cast shadow here. So I want to keep that consistent. So I'll go ahead and do that at the end of the video, but just to show you how we do that. Or I mean after the video. Alright, and then the last thing, I think is the last thing. Now this is something I discovered that really kind of revolutionized my thing. So now it's alright, it looks pretty cool, we could say it's done, but let's add one more thing called the gradient layer. And on the gradient layer, we're going to change this from normal to overlay. We're going to lower it down to maybe 25%, let's say. We'll probably actually even lower it more. Then go here to the gradient tool and select up here. You can choose two colors. Now I usually like to, this is where you experiment to have fun, but I usually like to start off with this for some reason, like a hot pink and an aqua blue. I don't know why, I like it. Now let me show you what we're looking at. This is what it normally looks like, just covering everything up with this gradient color. Now if I lower this, it's still going to be, and then if I change it, let's say if I change it to overlay, it's going to interact differently with the colors underneath. See? Then I'm going to lower it. It's just going to give a kind of a subtle sheen to it. Now maybe I don't want it over the whole thing. Maybe I just want this gradient over the skin color. So I can go ahead here and remember to go right click, create clipping mask. Oh, I forgot I made a clipping mask by putting it under the shadow, and it automatically makes a clipping mask. So that's cool. I like that better. See, it gives his skin a little life. Maybe I want the purple to be more at the bottom and the blue at the top. And the longer you do it, that's going to show, like, make it a more gradual change. So kind of messing around like that. Okay, I'm digging it for the most part. Maybe you make it really subtle even. Just lower it even more. Okay. And you can mess around with that. You can put gradients on all sorts of stuff. But that would be my last little trick to kind of make it pop out a bit. We can get rid of the shadow color. And let's turn on the 008 again. And we're pretty much done with this Pokemutant Freak War Turtle. So yeah, I hope this tutorial was helpful and that you guys make some awesome drawings. And if you do, post a link in the comments below so I can check it out and tell you how awesome you are. And also, if you're interested in checking out more Pokemutant Freaks, you can go on Instagram or Instagram.com and search for the hashtag Pokemutant Freaks. No, Pokemutant Freak without an S. Yes. Or with an S. I'm not sure. Try them both out. One of them will pop up all my Pokemutant Freaks that I've done so far, and they'll be there in all their glory for you to witness. So the final little touch I like to add is we're going to go over here, and we're going to change the brush actually to the other basic brush that Photoshop comes with, which looks like this. I think it's called the airbrush, and make it really big. And then we're going to need a new layer. And call it airbrush. And put it on top, put it underneath the shadow, just so that it becomes a clipping mask. It's a little trick, or else you can put it above and go right click and create clipping mask. It'll say create clipping mask. And then this is another part where you can experiment. So let's try a color like this. And so actually I'm going to use the right bracket to make it even bigger. And oh yeah, change it to overlay. Oops. You can try different stuff like soft light or whatever. Actually, soft light was looking pretty good. But let's go to overlay and turn the opacity down. That's usually what I do. So maybe something like that. Yeah. Kind of like having that little... Oh, and I usually turn the opacity on for this too, so it doesn't come off too strong. So I'm just adding some stuff like that. And you know what, I'm going to call this blue airbrush because I'm going to do another airbrush afterwards. And then after this I can come in here with the eraser and just erase it out on all the parts I don't want it. So I want to leave the shell alone and just have it on his skin. So I'm going to just go ahead and erase out all of that. It'll create like a bigger contrast. And the line is on top, so that won't be affected by it. The lines will stay crisp. And you know, I want to take it off here. Eye. If there's any on his teeth. Move it from there. Maybe also get it off his ear thing. Now I like to have the shadow layer underneath so that it affects the shadow layer, but if you put it on top, if you put the shadows on top, you can see like on the hand, the shadows will be a little more pronounced. But that's also an option. Let's see, which one do I like better? I think I like it better with the shadows on top actually this time. So I'm going to create one last layer and I'm going to call it red airbrush because I kind of want to give the shell a little bit of a redness to it. I think that'll be cool looking. We'll see if it is. So let's try that. So maybe just like that. And then I'm going to come in and erase out the red from everywhere I don't want it. And then again, they could put it on overlay. It looks alright like this, but let's try it on overlay. And like the opacity. You know what, I think I liked it more on normal. Yeah, let's leave that one on normal. I'm seeing some of the red airbrush got over here. So since it's on a separate layer, I can erase and not worry about messing up the blue airbrush that I already did. I think it's a little strong. Maybe just like that. And let's see, maybe another airbrush for the tail. So I don't know what color I'll do for that, so I'll call it tail airbrush. Maybe like a greenish, a light greenish blue. Yeah, that looks pretty. Because this guy is nothing if not pretty. And then what if I put that on top of the shadow? Maybe overlay. Oh, that's kind of neat to change the color of the shadows a little bit. Can lighten it if I want. Alright, I think that's it. So, just to give you an idea without the airbrush, and then with that extra airbrush feature, I think I'm going to load this a little more. I don't know, it gives a little bit of a shine, some more variations on the color. I think it's a little less flat now. So yeah, that's it. Hope this was a helpful tutorial, and if you make any cool cartoony stuff, post links in the description so I can check it out, because I'd love to see what you make. Alright, peace, God bless, and stay fantastic, everyone.